Okay, we're going to take a look at how the equations of lines that we've been working with can work with word problems. And you've probably been doing some of this along the way, but we're just going to emphasize some specific applications. So you might want to pause the video to read this scenario. You've got this baby tiger for some weird reason, and at 3 months old, it weighs 22 pounds. At 6 months, it weighs 31 pounds. So we're going to assume that this tiger's weight is following a linear trend, which means the weight is going to continue to go in that pattern. The first thing is this term called average rate of change. Rate of change is slope. So when you see average rate of change, you're just going to think of the slope in this situation. And since we have an x and a y value, we can simply do the slope calculation. Be careful that you write this first so you don't accidentally mix up your x's and your y's. And I've worked that out for us, and we end up with a slope of 3. Okay, so this 3 for the slope of this line means something. In this case, I think about the axes, and this axis is months, and this axis over here is pounds. Okay, so this means the tiger is gaining weight at 3 pounds per month. Those are the units. And sometimes people wonder about the units, but if you think about this, my y is in the numerator, my y-axis has pounds, my x is in the denominator, my x-axis has months. This slope means the tiger is gaining 3 pounds per month, pounds per month, pounds per month. All right. The next thing we're going to do is create an equation of this line. Well, if you think about the different equation possibilities that you have, almost always you think about this one first. But slope-intercept requires a y-intercept, and we don't have a y-intercept. We could maybe guess at a y-intercept, but we may not be correct. So then you think, okay, well, could I do point-slope form? I need a slope. I just figured that out. And I need any point. Well, that is going to work because we have 2 points to choose from. We can choose 3, 22 or 6, 31. So I'll use 6, 31, but that doesn't mean you have to. And if I'm going to do this equation, remember I need a slope, which I've already figured out. I need any point, which I'm going to use 6, 31. And now I can take this information and just put it right in here, y minus 31, x minus 6, and I have the equation of that line. But if I wanted to turn this into y equals mx plus b, because that's kind of the big shot of the equation world, I could do that. I just move the 31 over. I have to wait though. I better distribute this 3. And now move the 31 over. Remember, I distributed the 3 first. Now I move this 31 to the other side. And I get, let's see, 3x plus 13. Okay, well now I know that if I were to extend this, I should hit right there at 0, 13. That's my y-intercept. There's my slope. So in this case, this 13, or this 13, what does it represent in this scenario? Well, it really means at 0 months of age, the tiger weighed 13 pounds. So this is the birth weight of the tiger. Probably so cute. We're going to move on to another problem involving what Mr. Hanslick calls the nectar of the gods, which is coffee. I fully believe him. I believe this to be the nectar of the gods. Let's zoom in a little bit and see if this helps. Probably a little bit. Okay. Kenya beans cost $14 per pound. Well worth it. They're so delicious. Colombian beans cost $9 per pound. Still not bad. If you have $100 to spend on this coffee, can you write an equation to represent the situation? Okay, well, if X is going to represent the number of pounds of Kenya, then 14X is going to represent the amount of money you would pay in total for Kenya beans. If I had $14 per pound times X equals 3 pounds, then I'm going to pay $42 for Kenya coffee. So 14X gives me the cost of buying as many pounds of Kenya beans as I want. And then 9Y is going to give me the cost, $9 for Y pounds of Colombian coffee. So if I do the Kenya cost plus the Colombian cost, I'm going to get the total cost of my coffee bill. Well, it says I have $100 to spend. So by just doing this little logical exercise, Kenya cost plus Colombia cost equals total cost, and I turn it into algebra language, I have just made the equation of a line in this scenario that matches the standard form. If you take a look at our sheet, boom, boom, not what we have, boom, we just made one of these. So sometimes when you look at a scenario and make an equation, it goes straight into standard form. Sometimes it's best with the information given to go into point slope form. And as we're about to see on the back of this page, sometimes it's best to go into slope-intercept form. So pause this, read this scenario, and we're going to take a look at what's going on. Okay. You paid out $800. That's a minus to your bank account. You're going to sell stuff and people are going to pay you money. That's a plus to your bank account. So in this case, I could say Y equals, and Y is your total profit or loss, $50 for every mug set that you sell. And I didn't write the plus, but it's implied when we don't write that. That's $50 per mug set minus $800. That's the money that you had to put out of your bank account to buy this printer. And all of a sudden, we have math that represents a scenario. And it just so happens to align perfectly with slope-intercept form. So this is our third example that we've done in this word problem video. We've had one with this form, one with this form, and one with this form. All right, and I've already taken the time to graph that for you, by the way. We have the negative 800 y-intercept. We have a slope of 50. It's kind of hard to get that slope on this type of grid, but the slope is 50. And by the way, that slope means something. And we have an x-intercept, but we're going to talk about that here in a second. The y-intercept, what does that y-intercept represent? Well, it's 0, negative 800, and if I think about it, I paid $800 for that printer. Okay, so the y-intercept is the cost of the printer. It's kind of freaky how all these things like y-intercept and slope that we worked with before actually have meaning in these problems. The x-intercept is a little bit tougher to think of. At this x-intercept, and I'm going to go ahead and figure out what that x-intercept is, so hold on a second. Okay, I wanted to figure out what that exact point was. So I used this thing that we learned earlier. Every x-intercept in the entire world has a y value of 0. Because as I look at that point, I know the y value is 0, I just don't know what the x value is. So if the y value is 0, I put a 0 in there. 0 equals 50x minus 800. And now I solve for x and I get x equals 16. Okay. So my x-intercept is 16 comma 0, and what this tells me is if I sell 16 mug sets, I have a profit of 0. Here's a case where it's really important to know what the x-axis and the y-axis represent. So I'm going to stop for a second and talk about that. This is my x-axis. This is my y-axis, and my x-axis represents mug sets sold, and my y-axis represents my profit or my loss as I get into the negative territory. So this 16 comma 0 means my x value is 16. That's the number of mug sets I sold. My y value is 0, which means I'm not making a profit or a loss. So what I would say is selling 16 mug sets, is the break even. They call that the break even, meaning I'm not, oh, there we go. Selling 16 mug sets is the break even point, meaning I'm not making a profit, I'm not making a loss, I'm just breaking even. All right, and then finally, if I want to get the profit or loss from selling 8 mugs, I can take this equation and say, hey, I'm interested in selling 8 mugs, and I'm just working out the math by plugging in, and I get a negative 400. So that's a $400 loss if I sell 8 sets of mugs. Original equation, plug in x of 8 sets of mugs, works it out, I get a y value of negative 400. I'm losing some money. But you know what? That makes sense because 8 sets of mugs is about right there. And for 8 sets of mugs, I should be in negative territory. It looks like at about negative 400. I have 8 comma negative 400. I'm losing money. This final question says 20 sets. Okay, well 20 sets of mugs tells me I'm in positive territory. I'm going to make a profit. I just don't know how much that profit is, but if I find my y value, I'll know. So I go y equals 50x minus 800, and my x is 20. You know what? That was pretty stupid of me. I was doing all that writing without showing. Y equals 50x minus 800. X is 20 because I'm going to sell 20 sets. I end up working this out and I get 200, which means I get a $200 profit. Yay, money. Okay, so as you go back through this set of word problems, you'll realize that we've done one of each: a slope-intercept style, a point-slope style, and a standard form style. That's the show.